Do Bristlenose Plecos really need wood? What is going on, fish nerds? Carlos here, and several years ago I put out a video about Bristlenose Plecos, how to keep them, feed them, breed them, the whole 9 yards. And in that video I mentioned keeping wood in the tank with your Bristlenose Plecos, and to this day, years later, to this day, I still get comments either asking what kind of wood can people use in their aquariums with their bristlenose, or telling me that they've kept a bristlenose for X amount of time and never had wood in with it, and so you don't need wood, or just straight up telling me you're wrong, they don't eat wood and they will not die, and so had a bristlenose that lived for 3 years in a tank and it got 4 inches long and they never kept wood in there. So today I just want to talk about, do Bristlenose Plecos actually need wood? Do they need it to survive? Or are they just going to be happier with it? Is it good for them? Do they eat it at all? Do they munch on it? Is there any benefit at all to having wood in the tank with your Bristlenose Plecos? Or is that all just hype and it's all just myth and there's no reason at all to keep wood in with your Bristlenose Plecos? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we really get into that, let's talk about what we know for sure Bristlenose Plecos have got to have in their diet. Fiber. If you're going to keep Bristlenose Plecos, you need to give them fiber in their diet. And I'm going to pause right here to say, I already know there's going to be people in the comments telling me that they've done the opposite of what I'm suggesting in this video. There's going to be people say, I've never given vegetables to my bristlenose. I've kept my bristlenose for 5 years on nothing but flake food and no wood in the tank, and they're doing just fine. I'm not at all in this video saying that things like that don't happen. I've seen them happen. I know for a fact that it does happen, that people keep bristlenose and feed them nothing but flake food and just the algae that naturally occurs in the tank, and they live several years. I know that happens. I'm not discounting that. But what I'm talking about is what is best for your fish if you want to have the highest success rate. Because let's be honest, just because one person has a fish that lives for a while under certain conditions doesn't mean that everybody else is going to have that same success. And if you want to increase the chances, this is what I'm talking about, increase the chances of your bristlenose having a long, happy, healthy life, this is what I recommend. They've got to have fiber. The main part of a Bristlenose Plecos diet is plants. And so to give them a diet with no fiber in it is to really set the odds against them. Not saying they won't survive, but you're setting the odds against them. They need to have fiber in their diet. And there's several ways to accomplish that, but the easiest one is to just feed them vegetables, whether that's cucumber, zucchini, squash. I feed a lot of green beans, and you can just get canned green beans. French cut style is best because it doesn't have the skin everywhere. They eat the skin last after they eat all the soft inside part of the green bean. So just feeding green beans to your Bristlenose Plecos is going to go a long way in getting them fiber. Not to say that green beans grow in the river, but green beans as a vegetable, it's a natural part of their diet. That's what they would be eating in the wild, is plant matter such as green beans. Not green beans in specific, but in general, that's what they would be eating in the wild. So since that's what they would naturally be eating, it just makes sense to give that to them in the aquarium. They will eat things like bloodworms and meaty foods, but they're mostly herbivores. The same way as with most plecos, they are technically omnivores, but whereas things like Hypancistris are omnivores that prefer meaty foods, bristlenose are omnivores that prefer plant-based foods. So you need to give them plants to eat. And so that can be carrots, spinach, or any of the other things that I've already talked about, especially green beans. It's a cheap and very easy option, and honestly I think it's a better option than things like cucumber, but that's just my opinion. But I feed mine green beans, so giving them fiber in their diet is going to skyrocket the chance that they'll survive. Because here's the thing about Bristlenose Plecos: if they don't have fiber in their diet, they could become very susceptible to bloat. Now again, I'm not saying that if you don't feed your bristlenose vegetables, they are 100% guaranteed to die tomorrow because of bloat. Not what I'm saying. But I'm saying they become far more susceptible to bloat. There's people who are highly susceptible to cancer that never get it. There's people who smoke 3 packs a day for years and years and years and never get lung cancer. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that smoking doesn't increase your risk of lung cancer, because it does. Don't smoke, kids. Don't be dumb. So let's look at it like this. We all agree that smoking causes cancer. Smoking greatly increases your risk of lung cancer. That doesn't mean that Uncle Billy Bob didn't smoke every day of his life for 50 years without getting lung cancer. There are examples like that. But we still agree that even though there are people who smoke without getting cancer, that smoking greatly increases your risk of getting cancer. So if we can agree on that, can we also agree that even though there are bristlenose who survive for several years without eating any vegetables or having any fiber in their diet, that doesn't mean that keeping vegetables out of their diet and not giving them fiber doesn't increase their risk of getting bloat. You can argue with it if you want, you can disagree with me if you want, but my stance is that Bristlenose Plecos, in order to decrease their risk of bloat, they need to have fibrous vegetables in their diet. Not saying that they will absolutely 100% die without them, but their risk of dying goes up without them. And their chances of survival goes way up if you give them the vegetables, because they need fiber in their diet. Okay, so we agree. Bristlenose Plecos do better with fiber in their diet. We agree on that. And we all agree that vegetables are probably the primary source of that fiber. But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be any secondary sources of fiber, especially for cases where people aren't regularly feeding vegetables. Maybe it's an afterthought where, oh, I haven't given my bristlenose any vegetables in like a month, so I'm going to throw a green bean in there. If that's the way you're keeping your fish, there needs to be something there to at least be a supplement of fiber. Now, where in the world could we find something that would do that? I wonder what we could do. Keep some wood in the tank. When you say, oh, well, they don't eat wood. You're right. And I've had plenty of people show up in the comments to my bristlenose video to tell me bristlenose don't eat wood. Bristlenose don't eat wood. They're not panax. Bristlenose don't eat wood. They're not wood-eating plecos. They don't need wood. They don't eat wood. I know. They don't just chow down on this and go after it as their meal. There are plecos that do that, but bristlenose aren't one of them. So they're not going to just make a meal out of this. But I will tell you what they will do. They will rasp on it. They'll eat the biofilm off. They'll eat microorganisms off. They'll eat algae off of this. They'll rasp on it. They'll spend time hanging out on it and just rasp it on it, just doing their little pleco thing. And this is not a hard material. I mean, it's hard, but compared to like rock or glass, it's not a hard material. Your bristlenose can suck on the glass of the aquarium all day long, all its life. It's not going to ingest any glass. But this is a porous material. This is a soft organic material, especially when it's been soaking in water. And when they rasp on this, there are going to be little flecks of wood that inadvertently get swallowed. Not saying they're eating it, but they will swallow it. Now, I go swimming, and when I go swimming, I don't drink the pool water, but when I burp after I get out, it sure does taste like pool water. Why? Because I ingested it on accident. Inadvertently, I end up swallowing some pool water when I'm doing cannonballs. It just happens. And it just happens that they end up ingesting some of this wood. Now, what does that do for them? Number one ticket on the list of things that bristlenose need, it gives them fiber. Now, again, they're not eating it, but they are ingesting it. And so it adds fiber to their diet, that improves the health of their gut. They are a fish that subsists off of fibrous foods, plant-based foods, so having that fiber in their gut, helping them pass things along through their system, is good for them and prevents bloat. It keeps them from getting stopped up. Whether they're doing it on purpose or whether it's just happening because they're rasping on the wood, it greatly increases their chances. Now, something else that having wood in the tank provides that is somewhat debatable, it's not settled science or anything. There are some people who think that lignin in the wood, they end up ingesting lignin, and that somehow helps them out and, you know, increases their health or whatever. I don't know the science on that. I don't know that anybody really knows the science on that beyond just theory and guessing that maybe lignin in the wood is good for them. But that's a theory. But one thing we do know is that they do rasp on wood. And one thing we do know, the wood is not going to keep from being ingested when they rasp on it. And thus they are going to get added fiber from rasping on wood. So my recommendation is keep wood in your tank with your Bristlenose Plecos. Again, I know your cousin had a tank for 10 years and they had 3 different Plecos that each lived 3 1/3 years, and they never had wood in the tank. I know, I understand. All I'm trying to say is their chances go up when they do have wood to rasp on. Again, I understand they're not wood eaters, they're not gonna just eat the wood, but they will rasp on it and it will get ingested. They're not just spitting this stuff back out. All right, so now that I've got that off my chest, the other question I get constantly is what kind of wood can be used in a bristlenose tank, and my answer is any aquarium safe wood is going to be fine. So you want to make sure that it's something that's very dried out. You don't want sap coming out of it, so it's got to be dried out wood and nothing toxic or anything, nothing's had pesticides, herbicides, anything like that on it. But basically anything that's aquarium safe, so anything you would find at your local aquarium shop is gonna be just fine. Malaysian driftwood like this piece here, Mopani, Manzanita driftwood is gonna be just fine. Chala wood, any of those, spider wood, any of that stuff is gonna be just fine for your Bristlenose Plecos. So I mean, just don't go out and get some kind of treated 2x4 and drop it in there and poison it, you know, and don't just go cut off a branch out of your backyard and throw it in there with the sap or throw any bark in there. You want to have something with no bark on it that's been thoroughly dried out. And I mean, honestly, guys, this stuff isn't too expensive unless you're going for like a really big piece of aquascaping wood. This stuff's relatively affordable. But yeah, any place that you can buy driftwood for your aquarium, you're gonna find something that's suitable for your bristlenose, because I mean, they're not choosy. So yeah, you can get this stuff at flipaquatics.com. That's where I got this piece here, as well as I got all this sweet twig manzanita, which is gonna be really awesome in an upcoming scape. I'm probably gonna scape out a 20-gallon with that stuff coming up soon. And I mean, this piece is really sweet. It's got a couple of caves in it. But yeah, flipaquatics.com, they are a sponsor of the channel, and we are proud of that. We're really excited to be partnered up with them, and Rob at Flip Aquatics and Amanda, they're great folks and friends of mine even before they were channel sponsors. So go check them out, flipaquatics.com, and you can buy this stuff there, or you know, your local aquarium shop, any place that aquascaping supplies are sold, you can get this stuff. So that's the kind of wood that you want. Any wood, basically. It all works. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this answered the question, and feel free to ask anything in the comments below. Tell me I'm wrong. I know people are going to be in the comments telling me that I'm wrong, so I'm just going to invite it. Tell me why you disagree, if you disagree, and if this video was helpful, let me know in the comments below. Anytime that somebody shows up in the comments and says, hey, this answered my questions or this helped out, that always makes me feel good. It's good to know that something that I've put out there has actually been helpful to somebody. But that's what I've got for you guys today. Thanks for watching. You guys are awesome. God bless you, fish nerds. I'll see you next time.